June is Pride Month, so here are some LGBTQ plus horror movies that you can stream right now. Thelma is a 2017 horror movie about a young woman who comes from a strict Christian household, who is going off to college and experiencing life kind of for the first time. She begins meeting new people and she begins to develop feelings for a female friend that she meets at her school. Soon she begins to feel guilt and remorse for what she's feeling for this woman, and she starts to repress her feelings and push them down, and things get crazy from there. She soon discovers that she has some very dark abilities and has to figure out how to handle them in order to be with the people that she loves. This movie is filled with some very dark imagery. It's all about acceptance and self-discovery. It has an incredible performance by the lead and just some really creepy, disturbing moments. Slay is a 2024 Tubi original about a group of drag queens who accidentally book the wrong venue, and when they get there they discover that they're overrun by vampires and they have to fend for their lives against them. This one is so much fun, surprisingly so. I was laughing out loud at a lot of the parts in this movie. The drag queens are so much fun and their characters are so big and lively. This is a campy horror movie, so there's lots of ridiculous moments and their performances really help elevate it, and it's basically like a gay version of From Dusk Till Dawn. It's super fun and I highly recommend it. Killer Body Count is a 2024 Tubi original about a young girl from a Christian household who is mistaken for having a sex addiction, and she's sent to this camp that's essentially like a rehab for teens with sex addiction, and while she's there they start getting killed off one by one, slasher style. This movie is surprisingly so much fun. It's from the same director of the Slumber Party Massacre remake, so there's a lot of feminist twists to this one as well. The story is kind of flipped on what you normally expect from a slasher movie, where typically the females are kind of gawked at and the females are the ones in distress and running from the killer. In this one, a lot of the times their focus is on the male body, and the males are also kind of the damsels in distress in this one, so I really loved how they flipped that. I think that the performances are fun. There's a little heartfelt romance mixed in between all of this, and the kills are pretty fun too. This is another surprise from Tubi. I think Tubi has been killing it in the horror game lately, and this one was a lot of fun. Hypochondriac is a 2022 psychological horror about a young gay man who begins to experience strange hallucinations and visions that are essentially a physical manifestation of his childhood trauma. The movie is all about how he deals with that and comes to terms with who he is. There's a really creepy imaginary friend type vision in this that's very reminiscent of Donnie Darko, and there's just some very powerful moments in this one. This one is also available on Tubi. Swallowed is a 2022 horror about two young men who are essentially having their last night together. One of them is going off to LA to pursue his career. His friend wants to send him off with some money, and he decides that they're going to sell some drugs. And when they get there, they realize they have to swallow these drugs, and they're explicitly told to not let the drugs break inside them. And soon they realize that what they've swallowed are actually bugs with hallucinogenic properties. So this one is from the same director of The Ruins, so there's lots of body horror moments. It's kind of backwoods horror, and we follow these characters who are basically best friends. There's a deep love and connection for each other, and you see them go through this horrible experience together. Jenna Malone plays the drug dealer, and she's great. Mark Patton from A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2 plays this gay drug lord, and he's super flamboyant and over the top, and he's so fun to watch because he eats up every scene in this movie. It's not overly gory or gross as you would expect. There's lots of intimate moments where the camera's up close to these two men, and it's just a really creepy, interesting story. Huesera the Bone Woman is a 2022 body horror about a young woman who basically has everything in life she's ever dreamed of, or what she has been led to believe she's supposed to dream of. She has the perfect husband, the perfect home, and now a baby on the way. But with the pregnancy, she begins to experience hallucinations and very haunting visions, and she starts to question herself and her life up until that point. This one is all about identity, sexual identity, and basically accepting who you are and not pushing it down. And I think there's a lot of haunting imagery in this, lots of really creepy body horror, and I think the story itself is very powerful. Sometimes society places these expectations on you and you feel like you have to follow those expectations, and this highlights what happens if you go against your true self and basically become a person that society expects of you, it doesn't always go well. Clearly. The last thing Mary saw is a religious horror about a young girl who falls in love with her family's housemaid, and the family finds out about it, and they basically make them repent for their sins, and the two women devise a plan to escape this household and live happily together, but it does not go well. This one is a tough watch. It's very bleak, and it's a bit of a slow burn. It's kind of folk horror-y, and these women are basically just kind of abused by this family and all these people who don't want them to be who they want to be, and there's just a lot of dark stuff in this. I don't know if it's the best representation of an LGBTQ romance because we don't get a ton of that. We just get how the community around them reacts to that and treats it like it's like this horrible thing. I still thought it was an enjoyable movie, so I wanted to add it to this list. Enjoyable is kind of too strong of a word because it's a hard movie to enjoy because there's a lot of dark things happening, a lot of abusive situations for these characters, but I thought it was interesting. Lyle is described as a lesbian Rosemary's Baby, and that is the perfect description for it. This is about a queer couple who move into an apartment building with their child and they have another baby on the way. Gabby Hoffman's character starts to suspect that something weird is going on within the apartment complex. Soon, she tragically loses her child and she believes that the people in the apartment building are responsible, and she stops at nothing to figure out what happened. This movie is very quick. It's about an hour long, and Gabby Hoffman gives an incredible performance. I love that she uncovers what's happening and who these people are in this apartment building, and she starts to question everyone around her. So the movie is filled with paranoia. This one deserves more love, and if you love Rosemary's Baby, you'll love this one. And lastly, we have Titane, which is about a young woman who essentially is on the run because she's a serial killer, and she takes refuge in this home of this boy who has gone missing. She takes his identity and pretends to be him for his father, and they start to develop a very close bond, and she's also pregnant by a car. There's a lot of weird stuff in this, a lot of very dark body horror, horrific moments. Also a very sweet story about found family and really being who you're meant to be, and this one actually made me tear up and cry, which I did not expect going into it. Please recommend some additional LGBTQ plus horror movies in the comments because I'm always looking for more recommendations. And thanks so much for watching, guys. I'll catch you next time. Bye.